Hello. We'll be starting in just a minute. Oh, I'll move my. No one wants to see my coat. Well, I mean, maybe unless you're a lover of coats. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm having some techno. Okay, good. Okay.
That's me.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll blame everything on Darren this evening.
Told you.
Okay, hello. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tibet Center, Kunchuk Tardu Ling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey. This is our twice-weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma. Specifically, this is a talk entitled Dharamsala Through the Eyes of a Western Nun. All of the prayers we say are on our website under the FAQ section. Scroll down to prayers. If there is any problem with the sound or anything else, please let Darren or Tony know. And if there's anyone who you wish us to pray for at the end, please put their names in the chat box. And now for the prayers. We'll start with the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here together with their near ones who have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the Victorious One's teachings, which are a source of benefit and happiness. May they never be impressed by matches of interns and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. And now for the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their actual emptiness. And then through the inspiration of Venerable Shariputra and Teshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought. no quality of mind consciousness. There are no hindrance to old and age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear and transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra to resolve calm suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the proclaimed, Tai ta om gate para sam gate bodhi soha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should practice just as if you had taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the worlds with its gods, humans, assurers, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. And now, to help us set our motivation, we'll repeat the refuge and bodhicitta prayer 3 times. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So thank you everyone for joining. So last time we stopped when I was trying to evict the self-cherishing attitude. I was in the process of firing it. It didn't give me a break on my special day, the day that I was going to become a nun. The day I was going to make the biggest commitment you can make to the Dharma. But noticing my non-virtuous thoughts helped me to really see the downside of the self-cherishing mind. Thoughts of blaming others, criticizing others, as well as pride. We naturally like to cherish ourselves the most. The big problem is it's only possible to do that at the expense of everything and everyone else. Just like the mutual dependence on tall and short, here and there, big and small, the idea of most is dependent on lesser. Therefore, if we cherish ourselves most, that must mean we cherish others less. Even though blaming and criticizing were just thoughts, they are still actions, actions of the mind. And the more I got habituated with them, the coarser they would get. Blaming other things and people made me feel better about myself when I couldn't do something, such as put on my nun's robes. The revenge felt good when someone dared not like me. The blame and vengeful thoughts reminded me of the parable called the Two Arrows. In it, a person goes into a forest and gets shot with an arrow. This is obviously painful and hard to deal with. The arrow represents one of life's inevitable difficulties. It could be something relatively small, like an irritation, just such as not being able to put on your monastic robes the day you're becoming ordained, or a bigger problem, like being shot with a real arrow. The person in the parable then removes the arrow and starts to calm down, recovering slightly. Then, out of nowhere, another arrow comes and hits them in the same spot. This time, the pain is nearly unbearable, much, much worse than the first. The second arrow represents our reaction to the pain of the first arrow. The Buddha says this second pain can actually be lessened or even avoided. There is a choice in how or even if we react at all to the suffering. The first arrow can't be avoided, but we don't need to react by taking it out on others, strangers, even those that are close to us, as well as our pets, be it though verbal, physical, or mental actions in the form of anger, revenge, blame, or what have you. This second arrow is optional. The idea is not to ignore or suppress emotions, but acknowledge the pain or irritation of the first difficult event or irritation and work towards making the pain less by lessening our reaction. This can be done knowing that the suffering that follows can be lessened or avoided by a change in perspective, even just by being aware of the process we go through when we suffer. Then you can see it coming and prepare. You don't have to get so caught up in it. The goal is to work towards being able to drop it and move on with your life as quickly as possible. To lessen the event and eventually avoid our second arrows, antidotes such as compassion and empathetic joy can help. Even just thinking about the oneness of humanity always helps me. We also need to remember one of the main goals of Buddhism is to remove the self-cherishing attitude. For this, we need to remove self-grasping and embrace the idea that our self lacks inherent existence or inherent nature. This isn't easy, and we wouldn't even try to do it unless we wanted to. We need to want to remove it, and for that, we need to notice how terrible the self-grasping mind is, this which is a cause to our self-cherishing attitude. Doing this is applying the force of reproach, which is sometimes called driving all blames into one. This is one of the 5 forces that should be practiced in this lifetime. The other 4 forces are the force of intention, that's setting a good motivation each day, especially in the morning. The force of white or virtuous seed, which is gathering positive merit by doing positive actions. And followed by the force of habituation or familiarization, making firm good habits. And the last force is the force of prayer. There are also 5 forces which are related that are meant for when we are about to stop kicking. But we'll leave those for another day because they're a little more intense. If you want to learn, hold on, sorry. If you want to learn more about the 2 sets of 5 forces, I recommend Alex Berzin's Study Buddhism website. Out of all of Alex's extremely helpful Study Buddhism website I have read, I always have this page open on my phone for reference and inspiration. The page is called The Essence of the Practice, the 5 Forces, and it's a part of the teachings of the 7-point mind training. I hope you don't mind if I read the section for the force of reproach, sometimes called driving all blames into one, or in this case, it's called the force of eliminating all at once. The description is, sometimes it's translated as disgust, being it literally means to get rid of something. For example, we become so disgusted with our self-cherishing and selfishness that arises during the day that it creates a strong desire, hoping that you want to get rid of it right away. I want to get rid of all of this right at once. It's like if there's a mosquito or a fly buzzing around your head and you don't have much patience or tolerance for it. We think, I want to get rid of this immediately so it stops bothering me. That's the kind of attitude we're talking about. It's quite effective to think that our self-cherishing is like a mosquito or a fly buzzing around our face. Furthermore, if we reject our selfishness, the weaker it becomes. If we think of all the disadvantages of selfishness when it arises, we're better able to reject it. That said, we will now continue from last time. I finally got my robes on and I headed to class. Considering it was quite a big change in my look, it felt quite natural. It didn't feel weird looking like a nun in public, which was good. I arrived a bit early so one of my nun friends could help me correct my robes and give my any last minute advice. Besides a few other nuns, I hadn't told any of my fellow classmates that were sitting around me that I was going to become a nun, even though we had become friends. In class, I usually sat against the wall. There's only one bench in the back, and so most of us sit in cushions. On one side of me, there is an Italian who married an Indian potter. To the other, a serious Buddhist student who is also a Russian violinist. To the front, 2 longtime students and residents of the area, Japanese and Australian. I was planning to tell them all when I knew for certain that I was going to become a nun. But I was just told Friday, and today was Monday, so there was no time. Needless to say, they were all very surprised, but not shocked. After all, there are many monks and nuns in Dharamsala. Many others came up to me individually and congratulated me after class. The teachers all smiled and nodded in respect. It definitely took the edge off of being nervous about the ceremony. The biggest question after class was who was going to ordain me. It seemed to be a point of status, and I fell into that trap, hook, line, and sinker. My pride grew when I said Jada Rinpoche, the former abbot of Namgyal, and my irritation grew when the nun said she hadn't heard of him. Riding the waves of samsara, up and down we go. At least because of continued practice, these moments were getting shorter and less intense. The waves were no longer good for surfing, just for swimming and paddling. But there is never a dull moment when servicing the self-cherishing attitude. The Guru Puja, written by the 4th Panchen Lama, also stresses the importance of noticing all of the non-virtuous actions of our body, speech, and mind, and blaming it on our self-cherishing attitude. It says, this chronic disease of cherishing oneself is the cause of unwanted suffering. Seeing this, let me lay blame on it and begrudge it and destroy the great demon of self-grasping. Bless me thus. From there, it continues with a section on generating bodhicitta. Aha! I felt like there had been something missing in my checklist to becoming a nun. Bodhicitta. Initially contrived wishing or aspiring bodhicitta was there, but it seemed to have gotten pushed to one side with all of my other to-do checklist items. As for applied or engaged bodhicitta, that's another story and is still a work in progress. I have a hard time understanding how you can have 100% 24/7 engaged bodhicitta without having a direct understanding of selflessness. But my teachers say it's possible, so I still ponder this. I definitely want to help people and all sentient beings. I try to think of others in most of my actions, except when I come here and eat too much. Just kidding. That happens quite a lot. I feel that thinking and helping of others is the most important thing we can do for ourselves and the world around us. And the best way to help others is to achieve enlightenment. That's bodhicitta. And how do we generate that? As they say, we prepare the ground with equanimity, moisten it with loving kindness, plant the seeds of compassion, and bodhicitta will grow with its fruits of enlightenment. Compassion comes from the Latin to suffer together or suffer with, which by itself is more like empathy, compassion's cousin. Empathy is to feel for the other person or animal's pain, not just acknowledge it and feel sorry for them, but try to understand from their point of view. As the famous saying goes, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. If a neighbor broke their foot and you remember the pain when you sprained your foot and all the difficulties it caused, you can then relate to them and feel their pain. Even if you have never hurt or broken a bone, you can still somewhat understand their point of view and imagine their pain. This is empathy. Compassion then takes empathy one step further. Through being empathetic, one is then motivated to help the person in need. Having understood and felt their pain, if you are then inspired to help carry your neighbor with a broken foot's groceries, this is compassion. Neither compassion or empathy should be confused with pity or thirst. Pity has a hint of arrogance, as it's based on a duality of superior/inferior. Compassion and empathy, on the other hand, do not. If you act due to feelings of pity, you're putting yourself in the position of being a superior person, a savior who sweeps down and helps the poor little inferior helpless person. This not only inflates your ego, which is not good, but it also creates and reinforces their victim mentality, which is also not good. Many years ago, I thought of myself as compassionate. When I was young, if I saw someone crying, I would give them my teddy bear that I carried around, assuming it would make them feel as good as it made me. Being a highly sensitive person made me receptive to other person's needs, feelings, and insecurities. From these impressions, I inferred what might make them feel good, such as a compliment about their new hat or lending them an ear. Although everyone gets vibes from people, highly sensitive people seem to be more aware or cognizant of them. Studies have actually been done to show this. But later, my low self-esteem crept in and changed everything. Instead of my sensitivity and awareness helping me to develop compassion, I then used it to take things personally so I could beat myself up. What self-torture I created. When I was with someone and saw that they were a little upset, I felt their pain and just assumed it was my fault, that I had done something wrong. This then led me to become a people pleaser, not wanting things to be my fault. Instead of following the previously mentioned famous quote about empathy, that was the walk in a mile in someone else's shoes, I was just carrying their shoes and intentionally walking barefoot on a sharp and rocky path. Silly me. For me, this discovery was very valuable. I wanted to be empathetic and compassionate person, but wanted that to come from a place of inner strength and honesty, not worrying about what the other person thought and if they were upset with me. Needing to change this behavior, I looked at it from a purely logical standpoint without these silly insecurities. If the person's pain was visible, or if I knew the reason for it, then there was no need to take it personally. If that wasn't the case, there was no way I could guess what had upset that person. In terms of the two-arrow parable, it would be impossible to correctly guess what that person's first arrow was. I just happened to be in the wake of their second arrow. They were just reacting to some earlier suffering or pain they felt. Later, I tried to explain this idea to someone who wasn't very nice to me. I kept in mind that they must be unhappy about something, and I didn't know about what, because I didn't know what their second arrow was. Previously, having taken it personally, I would have attacked back, mentally or verbally, which just caused me stress and upset my stomach. Slowly, I could see a minuscule shift from always being so caught up into what happened to me. If someone didn't like me, my ego was hurt. So my first reaction was to protect myself by distancing myself from them and trying to ignore them. And if that didn't work, I would attack back. I never tried to feel empathy for the person who didn't like me. But as now, I was finding that it made me more relaxed and able to handle difficult interactions more easily. As for all the world's first arrows, we have them all in common, such as sickness, old age, and death, and no one wants any of them. The silver lining is these first arrows connect us all. As His Holiness says, we all are equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. We all feel this way. It's our common ground as well as our base. From here, we all build our lives. It's what drives our behavior. Everything we do is based on either our desire for happiness, protecting it when we have it and striving to get more, or our aversion to suffering, getting rid of it, and avoiding more. Remembering that everyone acts this way made me think, remembering that everyone acts the way they do because they think it will bring more happiness or get rid of their unhappiness is very helpful. I started to see small positive changes in myself. For example, if someone was nice to me, or if I was nice to someone or someone was kind to me, I was accustomed to and expected a thank you in return, and I always got a little upset if that didn't happen, which is not good practice, and I wanted to change that. After all, the person might be suffering so much that they can't say thank you. When I lived in Connecticut, I was walking to get pizza and stood to one side of the walkway to let someone in a wheelchair by. I was happy to do this. As the person in the wheelchair went by, they angrily said, "I didn't ask you to do that. You didn't have to do that." Grumble, grumble. Normally, I would have gotten quite perturbed, but this time it just rolled off. Thank goodness, as who wants an unhappy pizza experience?
Yes.
It's all about the pizza experience.
What do you have on it?
It was back before I was a vegetarian, so I can't tell you. I also didn't want an unhappy ordination ceremony filled with regret about not strengthening my bodhicitta motivation. It's never too late to correct or strengthen your motivation. My personal motive for becoming a nun, the one I told Jada Rinpoche, was aligning my inner and outer life. I felt like I was somehow lying to the world being a lay person. As my outer motive, I tried to become ordained for the benefit of others. But my motive has a slight tint of one of the 8 worldly concerns: hope for gain. It wasn't my driving motivation, but I was looking forward to shorter lines at His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings. You see, monastics have a separate line which is split between monks and nuns. Needless to say, the line for nuns is very short compared to the line for Westerners and the line for monks. You should have seen the line for the monks at the next initiation. It definitely went up the block, whereas I just glided right through with a smile on my face. Nagarjuna really nailed it with the 8 worldly concerns. In just one 4-line verse in his letter to a friend, he cuts to the heart of what guides most of our actions in samsara, besides thirst. We are motivated, driven, and base our decisions on our hope for gain and fear of loss, hope for pleasure and fear of pain, hope for praise and fear of blame, hope for fame. Oh, wait, did I say that right? Hope for fame and fear of dishonor or fear of insignificance. As one teacher said, the problem is that these 8 worldly concerns are trying to tell you what to do. So you should decide to not to be a puppet. Live your own life. Don't be guided by them in your life, and especially in decision making. Now is the good time for the break. I was to meet Jada Rinpoche's attendant at a cafe right across from His Holiness's Namgyal Monastery. I still had time to do a quick kora around the monastery grounds, which is about a mile. You can't help but feel a bit closer to His Holiness the Dalai Lama when you walk around the monastery. There's a nice footpath around the wall of the monastery and the compound where he lives. It has thousands of colorful prayer flags fluttering in the wind and lots of prayer wheels filled to the brim with Om Mani mantras. There is someone that oils the prayer wheels each day so they spin beautifully. I try to spin each one for auspiciousness, as for the meaning luck, as we say in the West. I was relatively calm with about 30 minutes left to go. So I did what any hungry person would do after walking a mile, mostly uphill. I sat in the cafe and had cake and coffee. I didn't bring anyone with me as I felt it was a personal event. But it was nice that someone I knew from school was in the building. The small gampa where the ceremony was belonged to her teacher. She was very excited, nearly even overjoyed for me. From that day forward, we have been friends. A monk friend of mine, who helps run the debate school for Westerners at Sarah J. Monastery, India, warned me that I might not know exactly what was going on in the ceremony and not to be surprised. He was right. The ceremony was like a whirlwind. The main thing I remember was having to do a lot of prostrations throughout. At some point, Jada Rinpoche and his translator were trying to correct the way I do or did prostrations, but I didn't understand what they meant. It wasn't until after the ceremony that I heard that your hands need to be flat and your fingers have to be together and not spread apart. During the ceremony and all other times before that, my fingers were spread apart and I pushed off with my hands slightly bent so they weren't flat. Having your hands flat makes the prostrations harder to do. But if you don't do that, you will become a frog or a toad in your next life. At least that's what one of the nuns told me. No offense to frogs or anything, but now I do them with my hands flat and my fingers together, just in case. And finally, at the end of the ceremony, he warned me not to obsess about food. He didn't say why, but I think because with sex and alcohol off limits, food seems to be the next thing in line in terms of external things to grasp at for happiness. Temporary contaminated happiness, that is. He also mentioned that if I needed to, for health reasons, I could eat dinner. It is a vow that could be broken. I have a thyroid problem, so I find it difficult to keep a healthy weight, so I do eat dinner. My favorite part was when he said, "You have changed your name, you have changed your clothes, you have changed your hair, now you need to change your mind." And that's what it's all about. That's in a nutshell. Regardless of if you're a monastic or not, changing or taming the mind is very important. Subduing those afflictions so that one day you can uproot them and say goodbye and good riddance forever. Then you can truly help and guide others do the same. At the end, right before the 6 months attending through Rice, he recommended that I not forget the date of this wonderful event. I smiled and thought to myself, how could I ever forget? It was the 4th of July, and I am an American. My smile must have been so big because he looked at his translator in wonder. It was my own little joke as being the only Westerner in the room. Yes, it was my day of independence. I was trying to figure out what I was now free from. I wish I could say it was my day of independence from the afflictions, but afflictions don't go away at the drop of the hat or of the shaving of a head. I'm assuming that, like myself, other monks and nuns just assume that you put on the robes and shave your head and suddenly something changes inside of you. For me, it did for a few moments excitement after I left the ceremony, but I didn't feel much different after that. It all felt very natural and oddly normal. There have been definitely no regrets since then. That evening, I wrote a poem. Luckily, it's just one verse, so I won't put you to sleep, to commemorate the event. These vows and robes are more than me. Please help me cherish them. In order to benefit all, they are this life's precious gem. I try to say that before I eat dinner. Jada Rinpoche suggested asking the Buddhas before I eat dinner. So I do that also. I also go to the cafe where I went before ordination each time I'm in the area and pay homage to that wonderful event. Turning, having coffee and cake, and rejoicing with great admiration to the Buddha, whose lineage I am now happily a part of. Because of the greatness of this lineage, these robes seem more than me. They are something greater than myself. With that thought, my self-cherishing mind shrivels a bit. For some reason, it also makes me feel more aware of my impermanence. I will die, but the importance of my robes won't. Knowing something will outlive you makes you feel more aware of your own impermanence. So I guess in some ways I did change a bit the moment I became a nun. Geshe Laktor, the director of the library where I go to school, asked me to write a book about how Buddhism has helped me, which I work on when I'm in Dharamsala. He suggested that I also include a chapter on how becoming a nun has changed me for the better. I'm still not sure what exactly to put in that chapter. I think the more noticeable change is how it impacts others around me. A couple stopped me in Penn Station when I was leaving New Jersey Transit area from South Orange. To my surprise, one of them asked if I was a fully ordained Geltsu monk. I had a short discussion, and when departing, they said they felt it was auspicious for them to run into me, and they went away very happy. Then, while waiting for another train, a couple asked if I wouldn't mind having my pictures taken with them. They ended up taking some silly videos with me, but they did ask what kind of nun I was and where I lived. So, of course, I got to mention Buddhism and living in India close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. A conductor on Metro North wanted to chat about his meditation practices and asked for some advice. Mentioning that he was a Muslim, I made sure just to focus on the practice and not infringe on his current beliefs. Friends and family also asked lots of questions and therefore learn about Buddhism. Before I wore robes, my parents might ask a few questions about how my studies were going, but that was it. But these robes make the subject nearly impossible not to inquire about, whether it from curiosity or whatever else. Obviously, I'm not a bright digital billboard in Times Square for Buddhism, but I think it all helps. And now, from Times Square, back we go to Dharamsala for a drink of water. At this point, I now lived in an apartment close to school, like many nuns. I had left the nunnery as the daily commute to school was about 40 minutes, and it was becoming too much like commuting, having to rush here and there and then back so I was in time for lunch and chores. It was becoming more stressful than India is supposed to be. Plus, during monsoon, sometimes the roads get very dangerous, and I was worried about not being able to get to school. My priority was learning, and such wonderful and important texts I was learning. Chandrakirti's Introduction to the Middle Way and Shantideva's Bodhisattva Way of Life, chapters 1 through 8, the 9th chapter on wisdom we covered this year. I felt like they were a perfect combination of the two accumulations of merit and wisdom. Most of the Sorry about that, everyone. Most of the nuns at school live in housing provided by the library. At that time, when I was looking, they didn't have any rooms available. Plus, I remembered what Geshe Laktor had said about how teachers and friends should be treated like fire. Don't get too close as you will get burned, but also don't be too far away as you won't feel the warmth. I ended up finding a place, a great, reasonably priced place very close to school. The building was full of quiet and nice medical students. Once I felt I had a fever and wanted to find out my temperature. I asked in our building WhatsApp group if anyone had a thermometer, and suddenly 3 people turned up in 2 minutes with different types of thermometers. These students are studying at the nearby Tibetan Medical and Astrological Institute. It was the first year their medical school opened up to Westerners. Like Buddhism, medicine was also positively affected by the famous King Tritsun Detsen of the 8th century. Tibetan medicine became enriched with the medicines of its neighboring countries, Ayurvedic medicine in India, Chinese medicine, Unani medicine, I'm uncertain where that's from. Similar to others, it focuses not just on the specific diseased area, but the whole person, and with concentration just not on the body, but the mind also. I don't know a lot about it, but from my reading, the main goal of the medicine is to keep our 3 bodily humors in balance. I will read a bit more about the subject here and there from different reliable sources. Humors are just another word for chemical systems regulating the human body and behavior. The Greeks had a long list of humors, which included the 5 elements such as water, earth, fire, and air, and space. Tibetan medicine includes these, but seems to focus on the 3 humors that govern the body: wind, corresponding to the wind element; bile, corresponding to the fire element; and phlegm, corresponding to both the earth and water elements. They attribute the cause of all illness, both physical and emotional, to imbalances among these 3. And what affects these 3? I will give you a hint. There are 3 of them. Anyone want to guess? Yes! Tony's got it. Well, at least I'll pretend he does. It's the 3 poisons. No, the 3 poisons. Damn it. Sorry. Desire and attachment affect the wind of the body, its energy. An increase in the mind is what refers to, an increase in wind is what we refer to as Westerners as mental or physical stress. Desire and attachment are the physical causes of happiness and sorrow. Buddha said that desire and attachment are like seawater. They increase thirst instead of solving the suffering from thirst. This is because attachment and luxurious life gives temporary pleasure, but this pleasure leads to more suffering, such as jealousy, power, dissatisfaction, loss, anger, and increases wind in the body. Therefore, from attachment, all sufferings spring, as it is the principal cause of psychological and physical wind disorders. So, if you have a lot of stress in your body and mind, work on lessening your desire and attachment will help you. Hatred, that's the next poison, is the emotion of anger and a destructive state of mind, and has long been associated with bile. Bile is even a synonym for anger. Hatred diminishes the peace and happiness of the self and of others. This emotion can be drawn from many factors. Generally, it manifests itself through pride, ambition, power, jealousy, stupidity, fear, attachment. It causes dissatisfaction, jealousy, frustration, unhappiness, and depression. It is also one of the main causes of psychological states such as aggressiveness, belligerence, or vengefulness, and physical bile disorders such as infection, inflammation, and fever diseases. Anger burns our happiness and freedom, so there's no surprise that bile is related to the fire element. Tibetan medicine uses the word close-mindedness for the 3rd poison, ignorance. Closed-mindedness is strongly produced when the human being suffering becomes so when the human being suffers from so much anger that it stops their judgment and ability and awareness and obscures their mental state, which they then fall into darkness. Negativity and delusion then arise and actions begin to get involved. Closed-mindedness produces doubt, fear, ignorance, delusion, lack of awareness and concentration, and selfish actions. It affects the phlegm humor, which produces bodily fluids and functions in all our parts of our body. It maintains the body fluid and its circulation. It induces sleep, patience, connects the joints, lubricates, and soothes the body and its organs. It also controls the heat of the body. What I found very interesting is the location of the three types of minds: gross, subtle, and very subtle. The gross mind, the mind and sensory consciousness, function from the crown chakra or the brain. The subtle mind, its energy form, resides in the heart chakra, which allows emotions to arise. The very subtle mind, or hidden mental consciousness, resides below the navel, or the navel chakra. I go to a Tibetan doctor due to my low blood pressure. They use a diagnostic technique called pulsology. He puts 3 fingers on each of my wrists like this, one at a time, and from that he can diagnose any imbalance in the corresponding organ, such as the liver and the heart. Then they prescribe a small pill made out of dried medicinal herbs and minerals to be taken around each mealtime. It's not a quick-acting remedy, meaning that you wouldn't take it for a headache, but within a few days I felt much better. With that, my faith in the medicine grew, and so did my respect for the medical students in my building. Do we have time? A little longer? Okay. Our building is right next to Nichang Oracle's house. And I mean right next to it, just a few yards away. Luckily, he has the glass, the one-way glass, so I can't see into his living room, which is very smart of him. I have a ground floor apartment, so I have a very nice view of his entrance and garden. The Nichang Monastery is right next door. It's wonderful to wake up to monks chanting, and on special celebration days, they also play drums and horns of various sizes. So just a quick word about the Nichang Oracle. He is one of the several oracles of Tibetan Buddhism, probably considered the main oracle for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as well as the Tibetan government, who consult him several times a year. There is also a well-known female oracle who they also consult, Kadrola. All are mediums for different powerful Dharma protectors. I've seen him go into a trance, which is just amazing. He comes out of it stiff as a board. Sometimes they can make an appearance at His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings. When the oracle does, I have to refrain from standing up and shouting excitedly, "Hey, that's my neighbor!" But luckily I haven't. Yet. Shh. Sorry, we'll have to take a moment for Tony now. Actually, how long is now? Okay, I'll do this next.
Do what you want.
No. I'll just.
Go over time.
No. So I'll just read the one next thing. I just don't want to run over. So Nichang Oracle has a very lovely garden, which I look out on. It has very nice, colorful lanterns that turn on at night. Several times I would pop outside at night to feed the refill the cat's food I leave out food for the stray cats in the area. And when I would smell this sweet, wonderful fragrance. At first, I figured it was a neighbor burning some special type of incense. But then I smelled the same fragrance when I went to the nunnery for a weekend retreat. I felt like Sherlock Holmes and walked around trying to locate it. Luckily, the nunnery has outdoor night lights. I finally tracked the culprit down. It was a night flowering jasmine.
Wow.
And sure enough, the Nichang Oracle also had one in his garden. The moths that are active at night just love it and pollinate away. Ah, the many wonders of India. It's funny how quickly my attachment to the intoxicating fragrance grew. Each night I would go out for some time and enjoy the fragrance. I could see my attachment grow also to the plant. I was naturally treating the plant as if it was the inherently existent owner of the fragrance, and that the fragrance also. The only way I could think it was the best fragrance the only way I could think it was the best fragrance ever is if I thought of the fragrance as inherently existent, something existing from its own side, allowing it to somehow own its qualities and characteristics. If birds or squirrels or monkeys came close to the plant, ooh, you better not touch that plant. And then one day, the gardener cut it back. It wasn't mine, so I couldn't yell, "Hey, stop that, you thief." But I have to admit, I liked the gardener less when he did that. Attachments make us happy for a few moments, but the negative price we pay lasts for so much longer. My attachment turned the gardener into the one who cut down my beloved night-flowering jasmine. Ah, the blossoming of a grudge, not as sweet as the night-flowering jasmine. So here we'll leave it for now, and I'll continue next time. So
Bill
is
Kamen praying for an old student.
oh, that's a
Passed away in
shame.
Mexico
Oh, who? What's his? Was
Bill Kamen, K-A-M-M-A.
Bill Kamen?
And he was frequently on the chat box.
Oh, which was? Oh, he was.
Known since 2000.
Oh, he used to be a member since 2000, and he passed away in
Passed away
Mexico.
in Mexico.
We're sorry to hear that.
His son and wife were by his ex-wife by his son.
His son and wife were
And his
by
son
him.
said, Chula is waiting as he died.
Oh, did you hear that? His son said Chungla is waiting as he died. Well done, son. And well done, Chungla.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will then say the Sutra for the recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha Bhagavat Tathagata Arhat Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans, is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the words of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He's endowed with the minor. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. His teacher of sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of the noble ones. He is the guide whose journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One has evidence of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He has perfected all the wisdoms. Abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He abides in Nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection and dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect fruits of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavad. The holy Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect. It purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is the renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostrations. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are an object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is supreme, ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having liberated, they showed the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate simply and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a purely pure realm. So thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much.
Sending waves of love to you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.